one of these days, maybe we'll keep this in. Who knows? We'll see how it plays. But one of these days, I feel like I'm going to open it up by saying, "Welcome to the Dividend Happy Hour," or be on the live stream and say, "Welcome, back to a deep end," or whatever. But anyway, officially, welcome back to another episode of the Deep End. Hope everyone's doing good. Ari, what's up, my man? We are, for once in, this might be the first time, well, second time. For the second time ever, we're in the same time zone, which is cool. How's it hanging over there?
I will say it is the first time we're in the same time zone doing the deep end. That's a first.
True,
The
true.
second time in the same time zone, but unfortunately, we're not together, man, in person this go round. So hopefully next time. Which, by the way, I will officially announce now that I am going to be on the Blossom Tour, hitting New York, Chicago, and LA. So Ryan, maybe there is an opportunity there to meet up in person somehow, some way. But with all that being said, this podcast, of course, The Deep End, is powered up by Blossom. And speaking of Blossom, one more time, I actually had, Ryan, a question come in from a Blossom user who DM'd me on Blossom, and I was blown away by this question. I actually did not answer it purposely, and I shared with this gentleman that I wanted to bring it here onto the deep end. So let me
Oh,
just go
cool.
ahead and open up Blossom now. And I'm just going to read both messages that came in. It says, "Hi Ari, I follow you and Ryan on the deep end. Love listening to you guys. So thank you very much to a Thomas K who's out there if you're listening now to this episode. We
Shout
go
out
on,
Thomas.
when you are at a point in the future when you can really enjoy the fruits of your labor and have that splurge item you've always wanted. This is question one. What would it be?" And then he goes on to say, "My kids are going through college and I'll have to wait a few years, but like many guys, I've got my eyes on a silver Porsche Turbo when the portfolio gets to a healthy point." Big emoji, smiley face. And then he hit me with a second question. So, Ryan, are you feeling ready for a second question on the deep end today? We'll hit two.
Yeah, no, I'm definitely ready. I want to just throw in a sidebar real quick. So, as you're reading this message, I'm realizing Thomas actually messaged me the same thing, and we did have a little back and forth. So, I did answer him in the DMs on Blossom, but I actually am excited to talk about this because this is a really fun question for
Let
sure.
me ask you this. Did he still say a Porsche?
He did,
Did he
yeah,
change the
yeah,
car?
absolutely, yeah, yeah.
In mine, he said a Lambo. That's actually just changed it.
Oh, well,
So
it's good to have
that's
options.
question one, and then I'll go back to question two. But just so everybody knows what's coming down the pipe here,
Okay.
another question that he asked: if, and this is a really good one, if a multi-billion-dollar pharmaceutical company has a lower stock price than said a all-famous SCHD, and a higher quarterly dividend, wouldn't it make sense to buy Pfizer for the higher dividends? So we'll tackle that one coming up on the end of the episode. But let's talk about this Porsche and what we would buy. Ryan, I'll kick it over to you.
So what's funny? I'm actually not really a big car guy myself. Typically, I don't really care. Like a car, it's a I mean, it's a good way to get from point A to point B, but I don't look at cars as I don't like spending money on cars is what I'm trying to say. But what's funny is like Thomas, if I had to pick one splurge item, if money was not an issue whatsoever and I had more than I knew how to spend, which hopefully someday will be the reality. I think that's a good problem to have. I too would actually splurge on a Porsche. I think he said a 911, right? That's
Ooh.
what he said, or a 911 Turbo. I though I mean those are a couple $100,000 at least. I would probably go for a Porsche Cayman. I've always loved the look of those. I think they are just the coolest looking cars. And it's funny, after we were messaging about this, I just got a wild hair and started looking up, Porsche Caymans. And yeah, new ones can definitely run up six figures. I think new ones you might be looking at maybe 150 or so, maybe a little more, maybe a little less, depending on like the trim and everything like that. But you can get some used ones, 2017, 2018, 2019. So, a handful of years old at this point, but still very, very cool. You can get a used one with low mileage, like 40,000 miles or less, for man, I found some that were like in the mid 40s or even the 50s, which still is a lot of money to spend on a car. But, someday, but actually, let me say, but with that said, that's also not like you can afford that. If you've got some extra money coming in, you can afford, you're likely to be able to afford a car payment on something like that, especially if your expenses elsewhere are on the lower end, which mine are now. And for a brief moment there, I was thinking, man, could I do it? Could I do it right now? And but I was like, no, that doesn't make sense. Me and my wife too, as everyone knows, we've talked about this. We're already saving for a car. We'll get a nice Mazda and call it good, okay, and that'll be just fine. So
Hey,
yeah, Porsche
Mazda
would,
cars, man. They're
man.
nice.
From what I've seen in my research, Mazdas seem to be right now the best bang for your buck. They're really high quality cars from what I've read from other owners. They don't have a lot of issues. Most people say that they've driven them for a long, long time and haven't had really any issues with them. And they look cool, and they come with a lot of good features. And so it seems to be the best bang for your buck. And we also looked at other cars like a Volkswagen Tiguan or a Taos. And I love Volkswagens. I've always had a Jetta. That's been my only car, with the exception of our Honda. Um, but I've always loved Volkswagens. And as much as I'd love to get like a Tiguan, a nice, Tiguan R line or a Taos R line, which are really, really sporty. Um, Man, the Mazda, the price point is just, it doesn't even compare. So, yeah, I think
I'm
we're
a
going to
little,
settle with
I'm,
that.
I'm taken back, man. I gotta say, I'm surprised by your answer. I would have expected, first of all, never a car. Yeah,
Yeah.
I would just wouldn't expect that from you. But I also like the first car that came to mind for you would be like a dividend Prius.
Oh, yeah. Well, it's not really a splurge thing, though. Like if we're
True,
having fun with
true.
this, if I'm thinking about my midlife crisis car, I'm going,
Dividend Prius.
yeah, there's definitely not going to be a dividend Prius. I'm going to go with like a Porsche Cayman. Like I said, I'm not a car guy at all. I really don't care about my car, or I don't really care about cars. It doesn't really do it for me. But something about these Porsche Caymans, man, um, I just really dig them. I think they're so cool.
I just have this idea of a dividend Prius in my mind.
And it's funny too, kind of on the same note. I'm not a motorcycle guy. I don't foresee myself ever getting a motorcycle, but I think Triumphs are really really cool motorcycles, and yeah, it looks
We
like a fun thing to own.
Man, we are. First of all, I would actually go if I had to splurge on a car, it would be a Porsche. I love them. I love their look. They're just sexy cars, I think.
Yeah.
My brother drove a Porsche when he lived in Miami for a couple of years, and I loved visiting him just to drive for a bit. Bike wise, a Street Ninja, I think it would be a super sexy bike. Um, when I think about a splurge for myself, all these I start going through all these items in my head. I'm like, what do I really appreciate? Um, and transparently, like for me, I really love. There's certain things like I really love to spend some more money on, and I started doing that more recently. When I was just in Greece, I actually one of the reasons I went to Greece was because a year ago I went to Greece to Santorini, and I was walking, around the island, and my ex and I had stopped into this shoe store, and I asked the rep there, like, where are like the good your good shoes? Like, if I'm gonna buy a pair of shoes, I just want them to be quality. I want to be walking on clouds, right? And she brings me over to what look like kind of boat shoes, but they're like, man, they are the greatest loafers I ever tried on in my life. About $200 for these shoes. I wouldn't splurge on the shoes, but I'm just sharing this story.
Yeah, yeah.
I went back to Greece for another pair of these shoes, and I bought the tan suede, and I wanted to get the blue suede, the black suede, and then they had like a darkish brown suede. So about that would be like $600, $700 in shoes. They didn't have my size, so I got to go back to Greece. That's a long story short. Um, but it has me thinking because I'm like, that's how my mind thinks. There's just certain things that I'm like this. And when I think about a splurge item, I don't know if I can really narrow down like the splurge item. But I will
Yeah.
say the biggest splurge that I would like to make in my life would actually be like a round the world ticket. I don't know if that would be on a cruise or like just the plane, like a plane, just to just, man, I want to travel everywhere. Um, everybody's, if you look back our last few episodes, I've been in a different room every single episode. I'm in different hotels, traveling as we speak. Right now, I'm in Newport Beach, California, which is amazing. Um, but it just, I mean, really, man, I even threw up this morning the Instagram post that speaks to exactly what I'm talking about now, which is I kind of angled it, which is, it says, how they spend their money type of deal. And it's like just people partying at a concert. Nothing wrong with that if that's like really your thing. I just feel when I made the post, a lot of people throw a lot of money around for like really an unknown reason other than just to spend and try to have what they think to themselves is fun, but they never really explored this the deeper end of what their soul finds fun and what sets them free. And so then it flashes into what I find free. It's like me running on Newport Beach and in Greece and in Albania and like all these places. And that dude, I would just splurge on this and on that splurge, it wouldn't just be like the round the world ticket. It would be like fancy hotels, like nice, fancy, and it would be the first class seat, on these planes. Not to like showy, right? It's just because I just like that luxurious travel and like not needing to lift a finger and just like a king for like X amount of days. That would be my biggest splurge.
I think you could probably, honestly, man, you could plan and save for something like that. Like you don't have to. I don't think you have to wait to do that someday. I think if you started now and really put together a solid game plan, and kind of mapped out where you would go and kind of just map it out from start to finish, what that trip would look like, you can kind of reverse engineer to see how much something like that might cost, and then you can start saving for it. I think at this point, like you're probably cash flowing enough every month that you could, in a, I don't want to say in a few months, but like over the course of a year, I bet you could really save a good amount for something like that. You know what I mean? I think that's totally realistic.
Well, look, this trip, really not the whole trip because half of it has just been me in business mode, but the other half has been personal. And while I was sitting in Greece and Albania, and even yesterday morning, I watched the sunrise in Newport Beach. So
Can't
beautiful,
beat
by the
it.
way, Ron. I can't
Can't
believe you
beat it,
grew
man.
up here. Like,
I
I'm
didn't
like
really I didn't grow up there, but we would go there every summer for a week and get a beach house, and it's
near the,
kind of
the
like
pier, yeah,
what's that?
near the pier, like where
Yeah,
everything's.
not too far from the pier sometimes. I think the pier's down near maybe like, oh, like 10th or 11th Street. It's somewhere down in the numbered streets, and we'd normally stay somewhere in the 20s or the 30s. Like we often would stay around 34th Street, 35th Street. So it's quite a handful of blocks from the pier, but still, it's everything's walkable. You can walk down to the pier from there. They've got that nice, I don't know if you saw it, the nice donut shop right there near the pier.
I think I
Um,
probably ran right past it.
Probably did. Seaside Donuts, it's what it's called. You really can't miss it, but it's like an iconic Newport spot. But yeah, that is. I didn't really grow up there, but I do consider it to be kind of like a second home because we would go there so often. It's definitely one of my favorite places on earth, and that's why I'm not like, I say I'm not a huge traveler. I don't have the itch to go to all these exotic places. I would in most cases I'd rather just go to Newport and do that. There's so much nostalgia there for me. I'm comfortable there. It's relaxing. Um, yeah, I just the, even a week or 2 weeks in Newport is still not enough time. And going back to the splurge stuff, that's another. Growing up, that was my goal. I want to make enough money someday to where I can buy a beach house in Newport. And as I've gotten older, I've kind of changed on that, thinking, I don't know that I want to deal with the upkeep on something like that, and it's crazy expensive. But the idea is still fun to visit.
What gets me about LA, like it's when I landed at LAX and it was the traffic that I got stuck in, and I was like,
Oh,
oh, this
you
is why
you
people
landed in LAX, huh?
yeah, yeah.
Oh, that's
And
that's quite
I
a
should
trek.
I should have planned to. There's a smaller airport which I'll be traveling out of to Portland.
Burbank or
Yeah,
okay.
I should have flown in there, but I didn't know, man.
Yeah.
I did live in California for a year and maybe 6 months or so, but that was
Hmm.
San Francisco, and I wasn't really flying, at that point in my career, so I didn't know all the airports. I just knew like LAX and
Yeah.
classic, and so I just chose that one. I flew in. Wow, and man, I was like, oh, it's great to be in California again. And then I got slammed in the traffic, and I was like, oh, this is what I remember that I didn't like
Yeah.
about California.
So what do you think though? You think Orange County, you think Newport Beach, Huntington Beach we could do a deep end retreat there? What do you think?
I would, yeah. For everybody who doesn't know or maybe just joining for the first time, Ryan and I have been talking about doing a big retreat where we can, just do this meetup with all of you. But we want to find a good spot that's beautiful, that would really, allow all of us to bask in all of our hard work. So Newport, yeah, for sure, man. I could definitely see, a nice little retreat going on in Newport.
Yeah, man, it'd be cool. You could do a whole weeks long. I've had this idea in my mind to make I don't know what you would call it, but you know how like I guess it could be a retreat, but you know how UFC fighters they'll have their camp, you know, they'll go to I don't know somewhere where there's a gym and they'll basically lock in for a period of time and they have their training camp where they just eat, sleep, train, and that's pretty much it. It's all based around their training, but it's usually cool. Like I think Uriah Faber back in the day used to go to so it was somewhere near the beach, and they would just eat, sleep, train, and then they'd be by the beach. And I always thought it'd be cool to do something like that with a group of people, rent a beach house or something like that for a week or a period of time like that, and just have structured days. Make it fun, but also go there, wake up, get a run in, maybe get a lift in, do some reading, talk about investing or whatever, have these powwows, hit the beach. Um, I always thought that'd be a fun thing to do.
Well, the idea, first of all, man, I started laughing a little bit because I just thought about us having this retreat, and then at the airport, it's it's Ryan and his dividend Prius. I'm, I'm
Yeah,
gonna, yeah, man,
and I've
I
got
can't even
my
imagine.
UFC gloves on, ready to go.
I love the idea, man. And something you just talked about though, waking up early, running, reading. Maybe we do like it's a week and we do, read a book in a week, talk about
Yeah,
that book. But this all goes into an idea that I've been thinking about for again, the duration of my trip for sure, but really intensely. And then even before the trip, and then just yesterday, I want to shout out Tim from Blossom. He's actually up there helping scale Blossom. So he is at a conference with me. And Tim, if you're watching this, shout out to you. We had a great conversation yesterday around similar topic to what we're talking about now, Ryan. But Tim had a similar feeling when he was talking about his journey with wealth and finance. And he said it was a magical moment when he hit a certain number, um, and he realized that he didn't have to work as hard because you get to this point where you hit the coast fire, right? It does not mean you're fully free just yet, but now you can kind of coast along. And that's the number that I've now hit for myself where again we go back to this, take all my money, just put it in the S&P 500, and invest nothing more, and I'll still retire with 11 million. The reason I'm bringing this up is because hitting Coast Fire has changed the game for me entirely. And Tim also shared with me that when he hit his Coast Fire number, it was like this moment where you're just like, wow, like I can spend a little bit more, like I can enjoy this even more. And so that conversation leading up until this conversation with you, I didn't go in this direction with Tim because I wanted to be fresh content with you, Ryan. But
I'm
I've been
honored.
thinking a lot about like this rich life. Like what does your rich life really look like? And I just feel like, I've really been getting to know myself in these small moments on this trip in particular. And there's some like really clear-cut examples. I was sitting in Lisbon, and I did choose to stay at a much nicer hotel than I typically would. It had like a heated pool at the roof and hot tub. Like these are things now that I really want when I stay at hotels because I like to run in the morning, get the second workout in the afternoon, and then just dive into a pool and sit in a hot tub. That's like a new routine thing for me. But what I'm getting at with this is like I'm like, wow, I was eating breakfast. And it has to be breakfast included. That's another thing, right? Breakfast included. And it was just a really, really nice experience, man. And I was sitting by myself, eating breakfast, nice and slowly. And I was like, this is my rich life. Like this, I am living my rich life right now. And I freaking love it, Ryan. Like, I love it, man. And it prompted this question, which it was then interesting when Thomas sent me that message, like, what does this kind of life look like for you? And I'm like, man, first of all, I'm living it, but it's like sunrises and sunsets are a part of my rich life. Morning runs, stretches, and workouts, a part of my rich life. Evening workouts as well, like a part two. And I don't work out for hours, or like, my runs are usually about an hour, and then the workout itself is like 15, 20 minutes of just high intensity movement. But that's a part of my rich life. Journaling is a part of my rich life.
Yeah.
Speaking to others is a part of my rich life. And so I'm like going through this list, and as I was eating that breakfast, I don't think I can travel any longer without now having the experiences that I just had. It's now like a part of my rich life. And I don't know. I was just thinking about like this whole lifestyle, man. I love it. Like I don't know if this comes off the wrong way. I don't even know if I'm explaining myself the right way. And this is probably terrible. I'm going to bring up this line from The Wolf of Wall Street, but it's me, so I'm going to do it. And Jordan Belfort's up there giving his speech, kind of riling up the troops. And he says to them, I've been a rich man and I've been a poor man, and I'll choose rich anytime. And I want to take that and use it in a different context. I don't choose rich to be like the flashy, like, look at me. I'm saying choose rich because life is so damn short, man. And there's this, like another way of living, which is so, if you have the ability to be this free, and the freedom doesn't have to look like the freedom that I enjoy. It's whatever freedom you enjoy. But the moment you get to that freedom, you don't just feel like, you're at your whatever net worth number you're at. You feel like an internal billionaire. You know what I'm talking about? Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does because you have projected the growth of wherever your assets sit today. You've projected the growth of that over a period of time, and you know that if it just continues on that path on its own, just you don't have to do anything for it. Um, it'll get you to that point where I don't know if billionaire, but you'll actually be like a millionaire or multimillionaire someday just by continuing to live your life because you've already done the heavy lifting. And that's
Yeah.
an important thing to keep in mind too. It's not just about today. It's about, you always have to put yourself in the shoes of your future self, which is a hard thing to do, but you always have to look into the future. And so I think that's what you're getting at.
Yeah, dude, it just, I don't know. I was sitting there eating. I had like, man, I put the whole scene together. My plate of eggs, I had some lox on there, some vegetables. I had a big, plate of fruit in front of me, three different juices, a coffee. It's all inclusive breakfast, by the way. I wasn't ordering all this.
Mr.
But
Gutman's living large.
yeah. I was like, give me three juices.
Yeah,
Um, and I just looked, and man, the music was like, when they play like nice acoustic music in the background, it's just like you're just
sure.
at this peace, man. And I was like, wow, like I am so rich, man. Like internally, I'm just like, and then the hotel also gave out free bikes. I guess nothing's free. You paid for it anyways, but they call it, free e-bike you can take for the city. And then I went on my bike and I was biking around Lisbon. I just had this big smile on the whole time, man. And I was like, I'm freaking rich, you know, because of this experience. And so that's what my rich life, and it goes right back to what I would splurge on, man. So my question I want to ask you, because we just heard a bit of like my rich life, what does your rich life really look like on your day-to-day rich life?
Yeah. So, real quick, I have a question for you about all this stuff after I get through my spiel, and so don't let me forget about it. But I think this kind of ties back to something we were talking about a few weeks ago, talking about designing your perfect day, and I think that's really what you're describing. I think the rich life is very much the same as living out your perfect day. And for me, it's a lot of the same things that you were talking about. Part of my rich life or part of my perfect day is definitely, waking up to meet the sunrise, whether it's out on a run, which as it's been hot here, I've been doing more of those early morning runs. And there's just something about it. It's such a good way to start your day. So that or waking up and, reading, I've said this before, but one of my favorite things to do, and it throws me off. Like, it throws me off if I go through a period of time where I don't get to do this. But one of my favorite ways to start the day is just with a cup of coffee and a book. And even this morning, I got up pretty early this morning, but I was just, there's some mornings I get up and I get right to it. I try and avoid that. I try and give myself these mornings, but some mornings I'll check my email or I'll check YouTube or I'll check social media, and that just snowballs into me just starting to work. And that happened this morning. But, between that and us getting on here, we started recording this at like 7 a.m. So pretty early in the morning. There was a good 20 minutes that I had to do exactly that. Just read, enjoy a cup of coffee, and that made a big difference, I think. So that's definitely a part of my rich life. I love doing that every morning. It never gets old. And same thing, yeah, running and getting a run in, getting a workout in. Like you, I'm kind of an afternoon lifter. That's my favorite time to go. After all the work's done for the day, after I've had a few meals in me, after I feel all warmed up and loosey-goosey just from being awake, it's just, I always have my best workouts in the afternoon. So it would be that, man. It'd be based around those things, I love what I do with my quote unquote job, which is making these YouTube videos, writing the newsletter, talking to you here on the deep end. I have to pinch myself still to sometimes I don't even believe that I get to do this, which thank all of you guys watching and listening, because that's the only reason it's possible. But that's a big part of my rich life. That's a big reason why I'm living this rich life, or or able to live out these perfect days, is because I get to do my job is based around something I love. And so that's really what it looks like for me. All of these things that I just described are things that I'm fortunate enough to get to do every day, and I hope I get to do them every day for the rest of my life, because I never get sick of it. And the cool thing is, and you'll attest to this too, the cool thing is you can do it anywhere. And sometimes it's even better when you get to do it in a fresh place, where you can go to Lisbon or go to Newport Beach or go to Mykonos, and you can wake up and get that morning run. And it's such a good way to see a new place. And there's something invigorating about that. But this kind of brings me to the question that I wanted to ask you is, okay, how would one go about starting to live their rich life today? Is there, I don't know, is there a process to starting to transition into that? Or how does one start to design this and start acting on it today? Because not everyone wants to wait until they're officially financially free. So what can we do today to start living out this rich life and start living out our perfect days? What are some things?
It's a great question, because nobody wants to wait. But I'll speak for myself. You need to. There's some period of time where like you do need to sacrifice the now for the later.
Mm-hmm.
And if it's something like, Ryan, is Newport Beach, is that still a part of your rich life? Like, imagine doing everything you're doing now, but you're living on Newport Beach. Is that a part of it, or really no longer?
I'm daydreaming. Hold on, give me a moment. Oh yeah, I see it. I'm there. Oh man, that
So
sand is nice.
it
Oh
was
yeah. Oh,
incredible yesterday, man.
there's a little crab. I see him. Oh yeah, dude. I would absolutely. I don't know that I would live there though, just because of realistically, I don't know that I'll ever live there, just because it would be so expensive to do so, and to do it in the way that I want to do it, it just
It's your rich life.
oh my. So it doesn't have to be realistic then, right?
Like I'm talking like here's the thing is I'm trying to get at like the bet I'm gonna share this try to share this quick story because it illuminates what I'm trying to say. 7 years ago, almost 8 years ago now, I had a really good friend in Manhattan, um, Lana, and I was like just changing my whole life. Like I just, left my sales gig and I needed a break from just all this craziness of selling and money and whatever. And this girl had texted me and just I was such a different guy at that point in my life, but she had texted me and first of all, I thought she was totally, like trying to, you know, whatever, talk to me and like advance this thing. No, she wasn't. She was actually asking me my opinion on a guy that she was trying to date. And so it just goes my headspace, man. I was a very different guy at that point, and I'm laughing because I remember when she was actually like, "Yeah, I wanted to ask you this question about this guy," and I was like, "Oh," you know. But here's the thing, man, about that whole story, and I love being an open book about all this. Because when your mindset, and this will tie into my answer for your question, when your mindset is off, your whole life is off. Your whole perception on everything is skewed. Okay, so this was a point in my life when I was starting to really get a healthy mindset, start to actually live, like feel my heartbeat. Like I keep saying, totally different guy beforehand. And anyways, we get to talking and catching up, and we had taken a trip together in our teenage years, and so we were like even just rekindling that relationship, that friendship, and we started hanging out. She started bringing me around to the girls' nights, and I started helping these girls out with like with these guys, their next move and all that, and I found a great joy in doing that. And one of these nights they invited me to Lana had like these VIP tickets. Courtside tickets to a Knicks game, and she invited me to the game, and I end up showing up. I've never been courtside to anything in my life, but I show up to the Knicks, uh, you know, court, and first of all, there's a totally different entrance to get in, right, to Madison Square
Hmm.
Garden, and I went up to the regular desk, whatever, and they were like searching for my name and the ticket. They're like, it's not here. And I'm like, no, it has to be. Like, I have the ticket. So it's like right here in the email. And she goes, oh, this is a VIP ticket. That's courtside. You have to go around the building. There's a red carpet. Go down that way. And I was like, red carpet, like, right? So I walk out of the Madison Square Garden. I go down, and I'm just painting this. This is like crazy, man. The red carpet's rolled out. There's the Knicks cheerleaders that were out there, and I'm walking down this thing. And dude, I'm a Joe Schmo. I'm nobody, right? And I'm walking down this red carpet, and I'm like, I am nervous. Like I don't know what the hell is happening, you know. And one of the cheerleaders by the door greets me there, and takes me up to the VIP room that we were in. Now I was a little late. The game had already started. But she like opens up the door. There's the bartender who was in there and the server who was in there. And I'm looking around, and then two guys that I honestly at this point I wish I introduced myself to. I was too like new to. I couldn't even say anything. I was just like, And one of them just tapped my shoulder. He's like, "Take it in," you know. And it was anything you wanted to eat, any drink you wanted to drink, right? It was just like all there. And then I was walked out to the court, and it was freaking epic. And I just remember like this walk, like looking up, and like I'm on the freaking court, man. Um, and I just remember thinking I could never go to another Knicks game the same way.
I see.
And that same feeling has been with me. Like for example, that breakfast in Lisbon. I can't like I am what I'm getting at is the mindset. It is for me very necessary to sacrifice a whole lot of the things you want to do now when you don't actually have the money to do it, to then put yourself in the position for the setup, the greatest setup of your life, to then continue to have those experiences. So
Okay.
I had like this taste from the Knicks game, and I just remember thinking like, I want this to be my whole life, right? Like these amazing experiences um, that just make me like, I'm like, whoa, right? Like this is cool. But it wasn't from a flashy standpoint. It was just like this internal thing that was like, this is so cool. I like this is an experience, you know? And I was in Lisbon. This is an experience, you know, like I want this. So the mindset is like, how do I continue to have this? What do I need to do to continue to have this? And so I think one of the first things everybody should do, if you want a Porsche, then go to the frickin' Porsche dealership. Don't buy a Porsche because that would be stupid. Go sit in a Porsche. Go feel how it feels to sit and test drive that Porsche. Feel the wind in your face, windows down, like feel it all. And then pull that Porsche right back in the parking lot, check back into your reality, and say to yourself, what does the person who actually can afford this experience, what do they do? How do they live? And that's what changed my life. I mean, forever. I was asking, I wish I asked that they were investment bankers. Lana worked as an iBanker. So these were like casual experiences for them. For me, I was like, what the frick? You know? But I
Yeah.
wish I asked those guys, like, okay, how'd you start? I wish I masters of the market then. You know, like how'd you guys start? What are you guys doing? How much money do you make? Like, how do I get to where you are? And everybody's gonna have a different route, but dude, I'm not gonna go back to the frickin' Motel 8. You know, like because you taste this, your standard moves to this, and then you're gonna play, at least I play then like I'm up here, right?
Mm.
I might not be there yet, but I'm now going to hustle because I've tasted it. I tasted the ice cream and I love the cookie dough ice cream. So I'm not going to get any
Yeah.
other flavor. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes total sense. I heard this story once. It was like, I think my dad told me this, and it was in reference to one of his friends he was talking to. His friend was, done pretty well off. But whenever he drank wine, like when they'd get together and he'd bring a bottle of wine or whenever they'd have it, it was always like $2 Chuck from Trader Joe's. It was always like the cheapest wine. And he was asked, this friend was asked, why do you still drink cheap wine? Why are you always buying the cheap stuff? And he was like, well, if I started buying the expensive stuff, then I could never go back to this cheap stuff. And so then I'd have to start spending like 50, $60 every time I want a bottle of wine. And, if I don't do that, if I don't know any better, then, you know, I won't even notice. So you're right. Like it's easy to have your expectations changed, or change your standards, I suppose. And that's probably also something kind of on the other side of what we're talking about. That's also, in a way, something that I think a lot of us do need to fight against, because that's pretty much lifestyle inflation right there. Now, when it comes to things like travel or experiences, then it's probably a different story because it doesn't happen as often. But when it comes to things in your regular life, like which car you drive or the house you live in or the clothes that you buy, playing into that too much and not withholding yourself or restraining yourself from those things can become problematic at some point. It can definitely get away from you. And so, like, when it comes to the Porsche thing, it's like, I will be just fine without a Porsche, even if someday I'll be able to afford it for sure, not stress about it, but, well, hopefully, but even if I don't end up doing it, like if there, in my mind, there's always going to be better things I can spend my money on. And so that would just be a luxury. And it's one of those things where it'd be fun to have, but I'll be just fine. I can still live a quote unquote perfect life and a rich life. Um, without having that. It's not a non-negotiable for me in living out a rich life. Nor, it's the same thing with living in Newport Beach. If I can go a couple times a year, if I can spend a couple weeks there, a few weeks there, sporadically throughout the year, that's totally good with me. I think it'd be one of those things where if I lived there, the novelty would wear off, and I don't think I'd appreciate it as much versus if I just went um, a couple times a year, a few times a year. I think it'll always remain a special place there, but I think it becomes different once you actually live there. And so it's the same thing. I can still the okay. How do I say this? My perfect day in my quote unquote rich life doesn't depend on those things. It's all these other things that I can start doing today. I can wake up and wake up early and read. I don't have to be a millionaire to do that. I can go on a run and enjoy it, the sunrise, and not have to be a millionaire to do that. I try and think about how I can have more of those things in my life that are attainable and aren't dependent on a certain income or having a certain standard of quality in my life. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, look, I like, first, I agree with everything you're saying, and I want to make sure that people understand even what I just shared, because you are right. If you are in again, the wrong mindset will screw you. If you are in the wrong mindset, you will tap into lifestyle inflation. And that's why I said after you go drive that Porsche,
Yeah.
you need to check back into your reality, which is like, hey, you can't afford this right now. And this is where then I come into saying it's okay to have the wants. It's not acceptable to have these needs. I need a Porsche. No, you don't.
Yeah, yeah.
You can want the Porsche, but in order to get the Porsche, it's like I live by for myself, every day I say earn your dinner. It's like earn your sleep, earn your dinner, earn your lunch. So like what are the things that I'm doing in my day? Did I earn these things? At the end of my week, for me, I say earn that rest day. And that means that throughout my week, I need to hit certain measures for myself and execute. It doesn't mean that I need to make $1 million in a week. It just means that, okay, did I do everything that I said I was going to do and execute on it all?
Yeah. And so
And
I
then I
think
earn it.
yeah, no, that makes sense. And I think what you're saying is, okay, this new standard that you have for these experiences, not going back to the Motel 8. I don't blame you, by the way. Um, but this new standard that you have, you only allow yourself because you have reached a point in your investments to where you can kind of I don't want to say take your foot off the gas a bit because you don't, but if you wanted to, you could, and you can reallocate money more toward these other things if you want to. But you're saying you need to have your you need to take care of business before you get to the point where you can take your foot off the gas. It's like the Charlie Munger thing. You have to crawl your way to $100,000 or insert number here. You have to crawl your way to that point. But then once you get there, you can kind of ease up a little bit. Is that kind of what you're saying?
Yeah, like, man, what I'm saying is that experience I had at the Knicks game was 8 years ago.
Mm.
I wasn't traveling like I travel now. Like for 8 years, the only thing I did for years was earn money and invest money. And I was called cheap. I was called everything under the sun with that, right? Oh, he doesn't do anything. He's so cheap. He's so this. He's so that. And now I'm enjoying it all. And people are like, oh, shoot, overnight, the classic overnight success. I'm like, no, right? Not at all, right? Like I sacrificed, man. A lot of my friends would go to concerts in early 20s. I didn't. A lot of people went on vacations, man. I had ex-girlfriends I can think of right now that were like, I want to go out. I want to do this. I want to do 2, 3 vacations a year. I'm like, no. Like I can't because I have a goal in mind. And once I hit this number, then I can level up a little bit. And so that's
Hmm.
all I'm getting at is I tasted through two very specific experiences, the Knicks game being one of them, 8 years ago. And that was a big motivating factor for me to really change my mindset of then asking the right question of, okay, Ari, the this was an awesome experience. It felt incredible. But your reality, buddy, is not courtside seats. So what do you if you want to be the courtside seat guy, then how do you have to live your life
I
accordingly
see.
to get to
I
the
see.
courtside seats?
And so
Hence the
that's
mind,
how.
all that.
Yeah, absolutely. So you use those things as kind of the North Star, and those kickstarted you to develop certain habits that would get you there. But then, and I'm going to make a comparison to working out real quick, by the way. We all
Classics.
we all get into working out because we want a six pack, we want to look a certain way, we want to have certain physical attributes. That's kind of the motivation. For whatever reason you want those things, you want them. Okay, so that's kind of the that's initially why you get into it. But then along the way, you learn it's not so much about the outcome. There's just something about the process of actually working out and making progress and that development that's really at the root of it. That's really why you do it. It doesn't start out that way. Your North Star is something else, but it kind of turns into that. And it's probably the same thing in your case where the experience at the Knicks game or the Porsche or whatever you want to use, that could be the thing that makes you go down a certain path and maybe start working harder. And upon doing so, you realize that there's more enjoyment in the actual doing and the making progress towards whatever you're working on than there is in actually than there will be in actually acquiring the Porsche or being able to stay at the 5-star hotel. And those are nice byproducts, but it becomes less about that and more about the actual doing.
Yeah, look, let me put it this way. I also don't need the Porsche and I don't need all the luxurious hotels and all this stuff. I'm content how I am. Um, I was living my rich life, throughout these 8, 9 years, right? It's the fact though that I tasted something that I can outright say I do want. I don't need it. And I think when you differentiate the wants and the needs, the people who get sucked into lifestyle inflation delusionally think that they need that lifestyle. I am perfectly okay with none of it. And that's what makes me rich, is that I don't need any of this stuff, but I want it. And
Mhm.
it's perfectly okay to want it. And I think therefore one of the first things that you need to do is really ask yourself, like, do you really want some of the things that you say you want? Like the Porsche. Maybe you actually go to the dealership and you sit in the Porsche and you like really, really feel it out. And you're like, actually, I don't actually want this, right? It was an
Yeah.
experience. I just wanted to try it once.
Yeah.
Because then that changes the game. And so through that experience of tasting it, it's go to the ice cream parlor, right? Like sometimes you walk in, you're like, I want pistachio. And then you're like, can I taste it? And they give you pistachio. You're like, nah, actually I want this other flavor, right? And
Yeah.
and sometimes that happens in life. I say when I experience certain things, I was like this even in high school, man. Like some of the first parties I went to, I remember I thought everybody was so stupid. Everybody was like hammered off of like Natty Light, and I was like, this is stupid. Like they're like throwing pillows and like breaking chandeliers and like Animal House. And I left. I was like, this is so stupid. Like I would rather have a really, really fine wine or a nice thing and earn it. I don't know where that came from for me. I've always had an earn it mentality, but I don't like, and I have a very deep appreciation, man, for like, again, because I don't need to go. I don't need these things. I want them. So when I get them, because I've earned it, it's a really, really deep appreciation for that particular experience.
It wouldn't feel as good if you didn't earn it.
Yeah, that's why I say like lifestyle inflation is stupid to me. Like I will look at someone who's like inflated their lifestyle. They're in debt way above their head, driving the Porsche that they can't afford, in the house that they can't afford, buying Gucci and all that. If I don't want to, crap too much on it, but like, come on, you know, for me at least, I'll say that might be someone's rich life. So if you like Gucci, all good. For me, I'm not a Gucci guy, but if you're that guy or that girl, right, who's out there totally inflated. It's stupid. You can't afford any of it, so you're a fraud. And you know it. And that's the worst part about it is you know it. You know that you're in debt. And the reason I feel rich is because I'm sitting in Lisbon with my breakfast knowing I can afford it and I don't need it.
Mhm.
But I'm
That
happy
makes
with it.
sense. Yeah, that makes sense. Um, okay, man, why don't we get into the second question?
Oh man, I
Um, let's switch gears and
totally.
get into this second one. This is a pretty easy one to answer, I think. You'll have to let's revisit the question just so we know what it is. We'll get into that and then we'll wrap it up after that. But this second question, actually getting into some stock stuff, into some investing stuff, is a good one.
Okay, so again, Thomas K, thank you for the second question of the day. We have, if a multi-billion-dollar pharmaceutical company has a lower stock price than the all-famous dividend yielding SCHD and a higher quarterly dividend, wouldn't it make sense to buy Pfizer for their higher dividends? Ryan, to you.
Where do we even begin? So I think if your sole goal is to get the most amount of dividend income possible, then it would make sense from that perspective. But it begs the question, is that really the only thing that matters in an investment? I don't think so. And I also think it's tough to compare an individual stock versus an ETF because they both have different things to offer. Um, I think where do I take it from here? Well, once again, I think there's more to consider than just the dividend yield. Um, and I think you really need to zoom out and think which one's going to be the better overall investment. And also, what do you want out of your investment? If it is strictly yield, then in strictly income, then perhaps like Pfizer is the way to go. But SCHD is very well diversified. It's much more spread out than an individual company. And so if that's something that's important to you, and if dividend growth as well is something that's important to you, then I think it makes sense to consider SCHD over Pfizer. I mean, SCHD's starting yield right now is still really nice. I don't know what Pfizer's is off the top of my head, but I know it's up there. But SCHD, you're still locking in like a 3.75% yield right now, and you're getting a double-digit dividend growth rate. And it depends on your time horizon as well. Like if you've got a long period of time until you're going to use this income or use these investments, then maybe it makes sense to offer something or to go with something that, while it has a lower starting yield, offers more dividend growth. And in the long run, you might be better off doing that. Um, but it just depends on a myriad of factors. And overall, it just depends on which one you think is going to be the better investment.
I totally agree. I think something that's important to look at when it comes to the portfolio is, do you want to be more of a passive investor or active
Yeah.
investor? That's a huge factor, because if you want to be more passive, then it just makes sense to go with an ETF and not pick stocks. You don't. I feel like people try to be a stock hero, and I played into this a bit. And sometimes trying to play the stock hero and pick all the winning stocks and curate your portfolio actually just makes you the stock loser, right? So are you outperforming, underperforming? How are you performing against at least a benchmark of the S&P? And if you're not doing that well picking stocks, then definitely don't go in that direction. That's up to each individual investor, because some investors out there can beat the S&P. The other, answer I have for this question is looking at what your goal is here, because depending on your strategy and depending on your goal, you won't want to be invested in an ETF, or you won't want to be invested in an individual stock. It totally depends, um, directly here, Thomas, to what you're trying to do. And for anybody out there listening, I almost, when I was thinking about this question as you were speaking, Ron, I thought about your investment strategy compared to mine. And you are way more dividend heavy, yield heavy than I am. And we have similar goals, but different strategies on how to get there. And that's totally fine. We're different types of investors, different investors. And so for me, I have gone the more I've been on this journey for myself, I've been going more and more into the growth orientation, you know, lower yielding dividend stocks that will reward me later through longer term dividend payouts, if you will, and the
Yeah,
dividend growth over time.
yeah. And to be honest, man, you know, I have my high yielders, but most of my portfolio, the bulk percentage of my portfolio is more akin to like what you're describing. Like my top holding is SCHD. My second largest holding is actually VOO, the S&P 500. My third largest holding is Visa. My fourth largest holding is Zoetis, which has a low starting yield as well. And then my fifth largest is Procter and Gamble. So really, like the high yield aspect of my portfolio is definitely not as heavily weighted as the dividend growth or even the growth aspect of my portfolio. But one thing that I also want to add to Thomas here is what was I going to say? I kind of forgot what my point was. I had it for all those minutes, but I lost it. Sorry, guys. It happens. It'll come back in a sec. It's like
Look,
on the tip of my
this
tongue
it's
too.
Thomas has it's a good question. I feel like a lot of people struggle with it, but I think everything comes down to simplification, and you really just have to think about your goals. Like how do you want to get there?
Yeah.
What do you what's what are you best at? And like stock picking is just not for everybody, so don't be the stock hero.
Yeah. Okay. It came back to me. Sorry, guys. This always happens. So what I was going to say too is let's say that, okay, Thomas, your main goal is just to get the income. You just want the income, which to me suggests, okay, well, maybe Thomas is in a position in his life where he's ready to use that income or he's about there. Then, okay, I can see maybe the lean towards Pfizer over SCHD. But on the other side of that, I would also argue if you are in that position where you need the income today, I think a big priority for someone in that position is the security and the safety of that income. Um, and that's something that I still think you need to prioritize over just what the yield is today. And so in that case, I would also lean more toward SCHD. But just because it is much more diversified, you're getting over 100 different companies versus just one. But with that said, too, it's almost like comparing apples to oranges because it is an individual company versus an ETF. And I think on one hand, yeah, you invest in them for same reasons to build wealth, but I also think you invest in one or the other for different reasons as well. Like Ari said, it's passive versus active. And so you just need to decide where you want to be in there.
And I'll also throw this in there. I had this conversation yesterday with a couple of investors at this conference that over time I have veered more and more into ETFs. It's just easier, and I get my time back. There's a multitude of factors why perhaps investing into an individual stock would not be the ideal cup of tea. But that's not to say that it's a bad route to go. And so
Yeah.
the question in and of itself, it's such a uh, personal answer for everybody, I feel like.
hmm And Pfizer's a tough one. I haven't looked at them for a while, but last time I looked at Pfizer, okay, their most recent earnings came out pretty good, but prior to that, I remember being concerned about the safety of the dividend. The starting yield was high, but over these last couple of years, their revenue and their earnings and free cash flow had really come down from the COVID peaks. COVID was really a good thing for the company. Just in terms of the financials, but it's kind of come back down to earth. And from what I remember, and maybe it's changed now because it's been a couple of quarters, I think. But from what I remember, the dividend safety was starting to get a little bit questionable. So that's another thing to keep in mind as well. Not to say that Pfizer's bad or they'll cut their dividend, but I do remember being a little bit concerned about it earlier this year. Hopefully the situation's changed. I sure hope they don't cut their dividend.
So last thing I'll mention about Pfizer actually is I'll just flash this on the screen here. We have Pfizer pulled up over the 5 years. 5 years. That's something that I don't like to see. Now, given there's a lot that's happened over the last 5 years. There's moments where Pfizer, like a COVID era, Pfizer pops up and a lot of money can be made. I personally enjoy investing into companies that have the upward trajectory not only on dividend growth and that dividend growing over time, but most importantly, stock appreciation. So I try to aim for both. And when I take a look at a Pfizer, I'm immediately drawn away from it because when I look at that, the past history, which isn't going to be, give us the future performance, projection of future performance, but it's just not something I like to see.
Yeah, it just depends. I mean, on the other side of that, you could make the argument that now's a really good time to buy because the share price has gone down so much. But to your point, it depends on what happens next. What happens from here with Pfizer? If their earnings and free cash flow will grow from here or get back to where they are growing versus declining like they have been these last couple of years coming out of the pandemic. If they can get back to growth, then maybe now is not a bad time to buy. And that's basically, yeah, obviously when you're buying an individual company, that's something that you need to be mindful of and really look into. And you don't have to worry about those things with an ETF. So it just goes back to, you know, what are you trying to do here? How involved, how hands-on do you want to be? Either way, you've got to look beyond just the dividend yield.
Yeah, that's where research comes in. Nothing better than due diligence to do. But Ryan, we're on the hour here, man. We got things to do today. Live our rich lives.
Yeah.
So I'll wrap us up here and just sharing that it's such an honor to be able to have this conversation with you, man, and really get into the deep end about a rich life. And all of you out there, seriously, drop a comment or two about your rich life. What does that life look like for you? Are you living it now? Have you had certain experiences that helped you tap into a rich life? Give us all the details down there in the comments. Ryan, back to you to take us out.
Yeah, and also drop any investing questions you guys have for us, or just general questions as well. Obviously, we spent this episode covering the entire episode covering Thomas's questions and rambling on them from there. But yeah, we really love to answer your guys' questions and try and be helpful in that way. So drop any questions you have for us in the comments, and we will definitely try and get to them in future episodes. That's really what it's all about. So thank you guys all for tuning in. Ari, my man, enjoy the beach. I'm jealous. Bring home a jar of sand for me. And we'll see you guys in the next one. Thank you for tuning in.